is it beneficial to put long-form content on your TikTok channel? We know that TikTok is leaning more heavily into long-form content because with longer-form content, they have the ability to run more ads against that single piece of content, meaning they can make more money off of that content. So they're featuring and favoring longer-form content, even though we are still seeing success with short-form content. So as a content creator, how worried do you need to be about this? We know right now their monetization is swaying toward that longer-form content. So the longer you can make it, the more money you could potentially be making on that particular content. If you're not monetized, if you're working toward that monetization, longer form content can help you to get there, because when they see that you're putting out relevant long form content, they're much more likely to give you those views to get to the point of monetization. So with that in mind, you should be working with a plan for longer form content on TikTok, but not everything you have to post on TikTok needs to be or should be long-form content, because we know from a viewer perspective, they prefer shorter form content. We do not have a long attention span on social media anymore. They want to get a piece of information or a bit of entertainment and scroll on to the next thing. So if you can find a balance of short form and long form content, that's really going to work to your benefit. But what does that look like? We want to make sure you're putting as much valuable content on the platform as possible, because that directly impacts what you are going to do in terms of growth and in terms of monetization. So making sure that you have as much content as possible, as frequently as possible, that is quality enough that people are watching, engaging, sharing, following, all of those things are going to help you with the algorithm system. So you should have a pretty good mix of short form and long form content. If you need a specific plan, you're going to want to think about this in terms of your week. How much content can you put out in a week? For most people, you can do about one short form content a day and maybe one or two longer form pieces of content throughout the week. But it depends on who you are, what you're creating, and how much time you put into your content creation. You know, here on the channel, I teach you how to do start to finish 90% of your content in under 5 minutes. That is coming up with the idea all the way through filming, editing, and posting in under 5 minutes. So you can, practically speaking, have a short form piece of content every single day, and then you could pick 1 or 2 days per week to have a longer form piece of content. Additionally, you can take something like your YouTube channel content and move some of it over to TikTok. I would not put all of my YouTube content on TikTok, because YouTube is a very different ecoscape. What works on YouTube probably won't work as well on TikTok, and what works on TikTok might not work as well on YouTube. You understand how this works. So you might find relevant pieces of content from your YouTube or from a live stream you did on Facebook, or something that's a little bit longer form that you can then take and put onto your TikTok, so you don't have to do a bunch of extra work, especially up front. But long form doesn't necessarily have to mean long form. It can be as simple as just a little bit over a minute or two. If you just have a longer conversation that you would typically, not have on TikTok in the past, to have it a little bit longer, that can also count as that long form content. So you should be thinking in terms of both vertical and horizontal long form content. It can be 1.5 minutes, it could be 3 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be longer than that, because TikTok has the ability to do longer, long-form content now, and you should be trying this out. So figure out what's going to be a decent test schedule for you. Take things you've already made, make a couple new things, but keep them on the shorter side of long form, and test out what works for the next couple of months. This is a couple of month process, not a 1 week process to figure this out. And you're going to see what is a good mix. What are people leaning into? Now, keep in mind, when it comes to long form content, it's important to keep their attention. You cannot have fluff. Nobody's going to stick around if you're babbling or you're just repeating yourself again and again. It has to be content that is going to be convenient, informational, educational, instructional, that they can understand and take something away from before they move on. And it has to be something that's juicy enough to get their attention. They did not go to TikTok to search for this for the most part. And if they did, they went to look for shorter form content. If they want full instructional content, they're going to go to YouTube for that. So think about it. What can you put on that is really, really juicy, that just has one punch after the next of really good value-packed information without fluff that you can then use on your TikTok channel? So To wrap this up, it is important to have some long-form content, especially because they're leaning that way for both monetization and views on the algorithm system. A lot of people are seeing right now that their longer-form content is getting more view time than their shorter-form content. It's being shown to more people. So you need to be testing this out. You need to be seeing how this is going to work for you, and you need to find a strategy for implementing long-form content, be it one particular day a week, or you're building out a longer-form platform on the TikTok space. But you also need to make sure you still have some of that shorter form content, because if people are coming to you, they don't want a 10-minute video, a 12-minute video, a 5-minute video, a 12-minute video. They want to see some of that shorter form content so they can see those valuable points from you. So you need to have a mix so that they can watch that 10-second, 15-second, 30-second video and take something away to say, yeah, that's a smart person. I like that person. I want to stick around, and I will be investing my time into both the short form and the long form. But in order to decide if you're a good fit, they're not going to sit through 15-minute videos again and again and again. So have short form, have long form, work it into a strategy for yourself and see what's going to work best, especially if you are aligning the content you're creating with your monetization and growth goals for the channel. You don't have to create long form, and you don't have to create short form, and you don't have to create at all. But depending on what your goals are, you're going to need to sit down and figure out how to make it happen, because they are leaning toward a longer form content on the platform. Not for everything, but you do need some of it on there if you want to start to see more of that growth and more of those spikes in your watch time, which can then impact your short form content as well. I know this is one of those things where you don't really want to put a lot of extra time and effort into it. So borrow from the content you've already created or piece things together. There's a lot of creative ways that you can create longer form content, vertical and horizontal, without a ton of extra work. But up front, it is going to be a little bit of extra work. So for the next couple of months, try it out. See what works in terms of that long form content, and then lean more heavily into what's working and take out what is not being as productive for you or financially responsible for you as you are creating that content. And we're going to do more videos on this. I always give you ideas on content to create, how to do things, how to save time doing things. So this is not the end of the conversation. We're going to keep talking about this. So if you've got questions, drop those down below, but follow along as we continue to talk about how the algorithm is changing and the platform additions and the things you need to know to make sure you're leveling up your content so you can fix your monetization so that you can do better in this space with less time and effort and stress input into the content you're creating. We'll see you in tomorrow's episode.